Hi guys, we've got our work cut out for us today, so let's just see how it goes. Today I want to do this Cedar Waxwing, but what we're going to be focusing on is proportions. And when we're getting into larger subjects like this, it's a lot more important that our proportions are accurate. So what I mean by that is, like, when we're doing the little warblers and these small little birds and their head is tucked in and stuff, distortions in the proportions are like less important because the sketch can still look okay. But when we're getting into something that's a little bit larger, the size of the head in relation to the body and then the length of the tail and all that kind of stuff, if we totally screw that up, it's going to be even more obvious in our sketch that we basically haven't done a good job. So I don't know, that sounds a little bit too harsh, but I mean, the point of this whole channel is to work on our fundamental skills, and proportion is a killer. And it's so critical to, like, anything that we do. So while you're running around getting your scrap paper, I would like you to have two pens today. One that doesn't really drop a lot of ink, where you can just get some lines down and you know, we'll do in the key features and stuff. And then if you have another pen around that drops a lot more ink at a darker shade, then great, because we can use that to do the black and work on the features and stuff like that. So I'm sure you're organized by now with your coffee and all that kind of stuff. So what I want you to do is start over on the far side of your page, because one of the main things that I struggle with is the angle. I always draw like up and down, even though I feel like I'm working on the angles correctly. It rarely turns out that way. Now I've screwed up my pens. Which is which? Oh, that's the dark one. Okay, no lid is the darker one, and with the lid is the lighter. So let's get going, because honestly, this guy, don't be fooled by this little profile pose. He's a lot trickier than he looks. So we'll start with the under, because this is like video number 10 trying to get this guy done. So there, my confession. So we'll just do a little scoop for the under part of the bottom bill, and then the curve over top. And please keep this stuff small. Let's do his a little section for his forehead that's black, and we'll carry this down a little bit of an angle for the throat, not too much, and then the curve down for the throat to the base here. Now I know this looks really tiny and stuff, but speaking from recent experience, I have always felt like I was starting small, and then he just turns in, everything kind of like gets out of hand, and he turns into a really big thing, not off the page and onto my desk, but just about. Okay, so a very sharp angle here for the, I don't know, is that called sharp? A low angle for the face and the front of the head. And then this little curve here is the crest of the head, and we're gonna leave the crest feathers. We're not gonna do those in just yet, because now let's divide the bill and take this black border back and around into the throat, and just shade that in so we stay oriented with where we are. And we're going to go back up and do this black around the face. It's kind of like a V. Take it back to around the eye, the back of the head. And then this small curve over the top of the eye, and we're going to put the eye is quite big. We can see a border of the tissue around it. There's a little bit of white, so just leave the eye quite big. With a large grayish white section where we've got the light reflecting off the curvature of the lens. And while we're here, let's just darken in his mask on the face here. And check the position of the eye, because if it's too far from the top of the head, you see, check this distance here. And if it's too much, then you can have a chance to move the eye up right now. But if this distance is too little, leave it, and we can fix the crest of his head a little bit later. Okay, I want to change the angle with this dark right here. The bill is kind of like flat out. Okay, now let's use this eye patch as it does actually carry through underneath these crest feathers, but what we'll do is just mark the back of the head. And this is where I really want you to pay attention to the angles so that you don't end up drawing them too up and down. We've got the back of the head here, the back of the neck is this little curve here, not too much. And then we've got the slope for his back, that's this little section here. And then we've got the curvature to the back proper. And push that out a little bit. We're following this line down. Let's just stop there and go back and see if we can get things fairly accurate for the throat. Don't make his head too long. And it's better to draw them a little bit thin and flesh them out later if you have to. So we've got the angle coming down into the breast. And then there's a little bit of a curvature in the chest. Pretty much straight down this part here. We don't want to push the chest out too much in relation to the throat and the bill. So that's kind of like a good way to judge. And if you want to do them skinny at first, that's probably a safer bet. So let's go down on the chest. Come on, what's going on? Down on the chest, and then there's this dip for his tummy. So a good angle toward the back. Exaggerate it if you have to. Okay, now is he long enough? I've done him too short. Okay, so what I'm going to bring the chest down a little bit more. and just add some length to the body, like that. And look how far back his leg is in relation to his crest feathers. So that's a good way to check our angle. So for me, if I've got the crest feathers coming out basically here, if we go straight down, we're gonna like intersect with his foot. So I'm not sure I've got him angled sharply enough. Which, gee, doesn't surprise me at all. Okay, but I'm just gonna, it's so weird how like when you sketch, you just feel like you're doing such a good, accurate job. But what I found is I just have to exaggerate everything. I feel like I'm doing the right thing, but then I'm learning that I've got to like push it out more, you know, change the angles more and all this kind of stuff. I wonder if we should worry about this right now. I'm gonna say no. We'll add that later. Let's get these tail feathers, wing. Sorry, you guys. I'll do these wing. Bring this down. And if this, okay, these are the bum feathers into the tail. The tail's like, done. Let's these now. Maybe I've made them too long. It's okay. Delete and start again. Okay, these feathers come up into the shoulder, and then we've got this. And a jagged line there where the okay. These birds, they're always so polished with nothing out of place, so it's very tricky. Let's do this dark. All this is too confusing to me, so I just want to get these darker wing feathers in here to help me stay a little bit oriented with where I am. Let's figure out these red tips. And shade around them so that we know to stay away from that. And this is our charcoal, and then we've got some black with the changes in the wing feathers. This is all dark. This is dark. This is charcoal. This is charcoal. And then this is all black. We'll switch pens in a little bit. I just want to try to get some of the basics down, but as I say, our objective today was the proportions. So at the end of the day, if you're too tired to do the shading in with the darker pen, that's like totally fine. what I want you to end up with is like the angles that you like, that look semi-reasonable in the sketch. And if you don't like the angles, if you're not keen on the position and especially the proportions, then oh jeez. Hey, delete and start again. That's my motto. Okay, lots of dicking around with the wing and the wingtips and stuff like that, but we can use our darker pen, and I just want to get some definition in it. Now is this too fat? This looks way too fat to me. Let's bring this in a little bit, and this is the wing is casting shadow on the body, but there's more going on. There's also the dark pigment of the feathers underneath. So these feathers underneath are dark, and we've got shadow, and we've got a pen that doesn't really want to do either. So let's just add some dark and some charcoal to the tail feathers, and we're not going to worry about the yellow tips just now, because we want to make sure that we're happy with the length of the tail before we put in the ends. Same with the crest feathers, same with the wing tips. Let's just make sure we've got something good enough to work with before we commit ourselves to these final details. Let's give a little bit more. We've got curvature under the bottom, and these shadow, curvature of the body. We've got the tail, the bum feathers I've made way too wide. Bring those in a little bit. Some shadow there, and we've got curvature of his body here, and then the leg is coming out at a fairly sharp angle. Keep the leg nice and narrow so that you don't first of all, if it's narrow and you put it in the wrong place, it's kind of easy to thicken it up and move it over. We've got kind of a little bit of a bulky foot. We've got these toes that come out and around the branch, and the sheeting underneath, and then the third toe, this very athletic angle going out and around. And let's put in the branch just through the foot like this. So remember, the foot is gripping the branch, so you've got to make sure you've got your toes out and around. And this right here is the claw for this toe. Thank goodness there's only one foot that we've got to deal with. Okay, let's take this up. Kind of goes through his back on this side here. And the crest feathers miss the branch, but if you're not happy with your angle and the crest feathers go through the branch, then that's just the way it is. Who cares? So leave this open, okay? We always have to have room for correction. Okay, now, oh, look at this monster bird, but actually, I don't know if the proportions aren't too bad. I was trying to do such a small face and a small head, and look how big it is. Complain. What do I want to do now? Let's go and work on his face. This angle should be a little bit steeper. Which I can't change. Let's put in the shadow here that's being cast by the crest feathers. So we've just got a little bit of shading there, and we've got shading to the curvature of his neck, and then we've got this little patch of shadow under his eye is where the feathers are curving off his face and onto his cheek. This is his cheek here, and then we've got more shadow where his head is joining his neck. So that's what all this is right here, and we take that into his throat. So we want to have a nice line of shading where we show his head is joining his neck, and all these feathers are condensing and folding in on themselves, and because of that we don't get the light penetrating, and we've got our shadow there. So just with your pen, just do the best you can. Leave this white patch here, and we just want to have his just a little bit of a collar there, and then the back of his neck is a little bit darker, and we get into this beautiful tan part that leads into his shoulder and the top of the wing. So just do the best you can with your pen on an angle, and we'll just get a little bit of shading down. These birds are so beautiful and so polished. See this patch here? This is the curvature of his wing, and the feathers are so, they lay together so nicely that is like almost rolling like skin, that light patch. That's how beautifully positioned the feathers are on these birds. They're like almost unreal to look at. They're so polished and glossy and well groomed. So you're probably thinking, why the heck am I making us do this with a pen when we should be using our colored pencils? So about that, well, I mean, today we're working on proportions, so that's what's important. But I was thinking that, I don't know, I don't want to say I'm getting tired of doing sketches with pen. That's not the right thing to say. I think what I feel is you and I have done a lot to increase our fundamental skills, and that was the purpose of working with pen and scrap paper. And I'm just beginning to wonder if it's not time to start switching to colored pencils on a semi-regular basis. But you know, you guys, I don't want you having to buy anything to work with me. That would just bother me immensely. I don't want to be one of those channels where, oh, you have to have this special equipment, and oh, buy these pens from me, and oh, affiliate links, buy this paper. I don't want you to have to buy anything. I want you just to be able to keep me company and simply draw. Now I'm just adding a little bit of texture to the curvature of the chest. So if you can, just very carefully with your pen, and see how I made them too fat? So I don't like this line right here. I think I'm gonna follow the other one. So yeah, I mean, I want your company, I want you to learn, I want you to practice, so that when you go away and do like your real artwork, you know, sit down and relax for a while with your pan pastels or your colored pencils, or God forbid your pencil and eraser. Don't tell me if you do that. Yeah, you know, like you've practiced your fundamental skills with me, and then when you're doing your artwork, you're like happy with what you're drawing. That's what I want. I just want you to be happy. But I'm so worried about you guys having to prepare to work for me, or work with me, not for me. Anybody can find a scrap piece of paper or an envelope or the back of a cereal box or the inside of a pasta box to just sit down and start working on your art skills. But when we get into like, oh, you need these pencils, colored pencils, and you need this special paper and these supplies, I don't know, then it becomes complicated. God, and the last thing I want is you spending money to work with me. Let's get some shading. If you've managed to find the proper angle of your pen like I have, let's just work on his head right now. I'm too terrified to move my hand because I've got the pen working properly. So there's a very, try to keep this is all pen control too, but see this little tiny itty bitty thin white strip above the black. Try to keep that in, and we've just got a little bit of shading with the curvature of these crest feathers. And these guys are, unlike a cardinal, the crest is usually no higher than this. You're not going to see it sticking up like a blue jay. So whatever you've done, make sure it's nice and flat, and then just add a little bit of extra shading where the crest feathers, some are underneath, so they're a little bit darker. They're curving toward the back of his head. We've got some jagged edges here, which I'm not accurately able to show, but just add a little bit of shading at the back there. Okay, and once again, I'm super happy with the way I'm holding my pen. So now on the cheek feathers, let's go back. With this V is okay. With the cheek feathers, get some more depth and curvature on the cheek. Please and thank you. And then the collar, make sure that this collar is nice and defined. As I said before, we've got these feathers on his head bumping in to the curvature of his body. So those feathers are condensing and bending, and the light's not getting in there. So this is why it looks like there is a collar where his head is meeting his body. We just want to make sure that we get that in there. If you're super happy with the way you're controlling your pen, what you can do is just add this very subtle tone on this breast patch, just to give some definition. It's not nearly this dark. And then we've got lighter, and then we've got the tan is kind of changing a little bit, and it's getting a little bit darker into the back. These feathers are sort of picking up kind of a little charcoal tan shade. And let's just work on his back and getting into the wing feathers and adding a little bit more tone so that we can just have a little bit of oh, don't let me forget to add that white curve there. And then see, what's working really well for me right now is I'm just keeping the same angle with my pen. I'm too terrified to move it, but I can add a little bit of pressure just to get slightly darker tones. Just like shade in a little bit of that curvature, and then make some changes here. And I'm guessing that I'm not going to be able to do as well with my darker pen, so I might just stick with this one. But if you're happy with your proportions and that kind of stuff, switch to your pen that drops more ink a lot faster, because then your shading is going to be quicker. And you can use your heavier pen to get good definition with the black, but don't use your heavier pen to do the charcoal. This, I just wanted to maybe take that up a little bit more. This is all curvature through his, the back curving around to the wing. Okay, so yeah, I just wanna, I'm going back over them. I wanna get the charcoal. I wanna use this pen to get some of the black in, and I'm not being too precise. I'm just picking up my pen and moving it down and deciding where I want the black to be for the wing feathers. And then, is his tail too... Have I totally made this too fat? Overkill. In previous attempts, I'd made the tail a little bit too narrow. Do a jagged edge here on your shading to show where the tummy feathers are coming in, and the bum and the bum feathers at his back and stuff like that are underneath. Okay, let's just get some charcoal. I don't want to color all of it. And I think I'm kind of like happy with the length of the tail. I'm just going to put in these yellow tips. Have a pretty distinct border where the black runs out and the yellow starts. A bit more charcoal. This is small in the picture and it's way too big in my sketch. I'm just going to bring his body. I wonder what I could do to, you know, I might take some of the wing feathers down a little bit. Just trying to keep the angle of my pen and just change the pressure. I got these corrections in here. Now the around his tummy, it's in shadow. I'll just shade this up a little bit. And then through the chest. I'm just trying to decide when I'm going to be done with this. Oh, see, I don't want to change the angle of the pen in my hand unless I'm sure that I'm kind of like done with this before I switch to the other one. While we're at it, how about we just shade the branch real quick, and you know that there's a shadow under his body, okay, because he's going to be casting a shadow on the branch. There's going to be shading under the foot, and then shadow on each side of the curvature of the branch, and the light is going to be catching the top. So might as well just add that shadow where his around his foot as well. That the back toe is in shadow, and we've got lots of bumps and stuff with the cartilage and the veins and the knobbies and everything like that. With the foot itself and the toes, I can just darken that up. And then shade the branch a little bit. It's a small thing to do. Gives us a bit of a break too. Don't lose that great big claw. And then the leg is underneath his body. So it's dark tissue to begin with, and then it's in shadow. So up here, just depending on where your crest feathers lie, just shade the one side of the branch to show the curvature, and a little bit on the other side. And just a smidge in the middle. It's got some texture. Oh, so, okay, so just, this guy is not too bad, I have to say. And to prove it, I should show you the disasters that I've done previously. Because compared to those, you'd be like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. Okay, so just while we're doing our shading, let's have a one-sided conversation about whether or not we should start working with colored pencils. And my distress at you guys actually having to buy something to keep me company. Let me know in the comments. The other, my husband is like, dear, you don't ask people to subscribe. You don't ask them to comment. You don't ask them to like your videos. And it's like, I don't want to inconvenience anybody. If they like working with me, they'll come back. That's what I say to them. Okay, you know what? I do, honestly, you guys, I do really like this one compared to the bloody disasters in the previous days. Even though all the bump feathers, this is totally screwed up here. He does have a wide tail though. And this is all wrong and everything like that. Ugh, doesn't matter. I'm not looking at this. I still like them. So what I want to do is let's switch to our pen that drops a lot of color, and let's work on bumping up the contrasts, and then we can call it quits. This is the one I want. Let's start at the face, and we'll get some nice dark definition with this mask. Be careful of your white patches. Don't go crazy. No craziness allowed. There is quite a bit of black above the eyeball, so make sure you get that in. Take the black feature to the back. And get it like that little patch in front of the eye. There's a little bit of white underneath the eyeball, so stay away from that. And then go back and darken the lens itself, so we've got really good contrast. But be careful with what you're doing, because this is the kind of enthusiasm that can totally screw up all the work that you've done. So let's just get some good contrast going on so that he's got a little bit more depth and character. I think I'm going to take that down a little bit like that. That's what. Now do the same with underneath the bill, the bottom bill. You can define that little curve if you like. And then this is dark, plus it's in shadow. And my white patch is a little big. I'm going to tone that down a little bit and take this down into his throat, but not all the way. See how the tone is changing right around here? And I'm going to put in these two black lines. And while we're here, use your other pen and just very gently, very lightly shade the top of his bill for that gray. Good enough. Okay, so this is nice with the black. Where else do we want to go? I think we should, I'm kind of worried about getting too much tone, but this is a very harsh border with a feather, so I think it's kind of fair to have a little bit of a line there. Let's darken up some of the wing feathers just to give them a bit more texture. Got this nice black, black, black. Not a lot, but just to kind of, and we're just going to work our way through them and lay down a little bit more ink where we want to have these good contrasts. Okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna leave the colored pencil scenario up to you guys, because I do think it would be useful for us to start focusing on blending, shading, and doing a little bit of work with our colored pencils. I do have a whole bunch of them. I used to use them all the time. And then I realized that I didn't really have too many fundamental skills with regard to depth, understanding of light and shadow, so even though my artwork looked nice, oh, you're so talented. God, and meanwhile I'm looking at pieces thinking, I can't stand it. Yeah, you know, maybe it's time to sort of start venturing into working with our colored pencils. What do I do about that white that's on the other side of his wing? You know how allergic I am to lines. Darken up his leg while you're at it, okay? Because it really is very, very black. And also, when you make his foot and his toes a little bit darker, it does give contrast to the branch that he's perched on. So that's kind of good too. Speaking of which, let's add a little bit of, make sure you got that shadow happening. Well, I don't know. Why don't you guys let me know what you think? Because we've done quite a bit of, I mean, we're going to be working on proportions for the rest of our lives, okay? That's never going to go away. We're going to be working on shading, understanding what we look at, the way light changes. We're going to be working on that for the rest of our lives. So, really, is it kind of okay to start switching to colored pencils or more stuff that we should be doing? Because really what it comes down to is doing the same thing but just using different tools, because all these fundamentals never get easier. Oh, I shouldn't say that. That's not true. They never go away when you're thinking of your art piece and what you want to simply draw. Do I or do I not? Let's just put in that white there. Okay, so I'll make my husband happy by saying please subscribe to my channel, and please comment. That's the other thing I'm supposed to say. And but like, I'm serious. Let me know if you guys want to just keep working on birds, or if we should, if you're really interested in kind of switching to colored pencils. I think working on florals with our colored pencils would be an excellent place to start, with our shading, proportions, light, you know, all that kind of stuff would be really good. He's not too bad. If I do say so myself. That you're not allowed to comment on. Okay, super grateful for your company as always. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.